everybody. Welcome back to Faith Life Travels. This is Gabrielle Noel, and today we have quite an interesting topic. But firstly, I would like to make a little disclaimer. I'm not sharing on this topic because I am perfect and I just want you to follow me, right? In fact, the truth is actually the opposite. This is a topic that I struggle with in my personal life. However, I have found a lot of truth in the message of the theology of the body, and I just want to share this message of theology of the body and of chastity with as many people as possible. And whether you accept this message or not is totally up to you. That's between you and God, all right? So let's get right into it. Firstly, let's talk a little bit about what chastity actually is. I think the majority of the world has this vision of chastity that is false, right? I think a lot of people think that it's just all about the repression of your desires, of the desires of your and feelings that you have. However, it's not that. Chastity is a virtue that is directly related to the virtue of temperance. What temperance does is it teaches you to moderate your desires for pleasures, and it frees you to be able to enjoy that pleasure in a good way, in the way that God intended it, without making this pleasure into a God, right? So let's look at alcohol, for example. Alcohol, in and of itself, is not a bad thing. It is the abuse of alcohol, it is drunkenness that is something bad. Even objectively, I think we can all agree that drunkenness is not exactly something that is good, right? However, we are free to enjoy alcohol. There's a way to enjoy alcohol without getting drunk. You just don't drink too much, right? And the virtue of temperance teaches us that, just as the virtue of chastity teaches us that same thing with our sexuality. The thing is, it's not that sex in itself is a bad thing, it's actually something that is good and holy and sacred. And we need to develop as a generation the attitude of approaching sex with reverence and respecting the place that it belongs to, which is within marriage. So, how do we live this out? How do we live chastity? How do we build the virtue of temperance? We can do that in three ways that Evan Lemoine from the Theology of the Body Institute suggests. The first thing is, he says we have to get in touch with our desires. He says sometimes we chase after our desires, our physical desires, right? And at some point, we come to the realization that our desires are not being fulfilled by this thing, whether it's sex, drugs, alcohol, parties, whatever it is, it's not being fulfilled. The reason why it's not being fulfilled is because we have actually misunderstood our desires. The desires that we have, the deepest desires that we have in our hearts, are for infinite things that finite things cannot fulfill, right? No matter how hard you try. And these infinite things that our heart is desiring is actually for God. It's actually for heaven. Saint Therese of Lisieux actually said that all of our desires come from God and lead back to Him. The problem is some of our desires have actually been twisted. So we need to work on untwisted the desires that have become twisted. Now, one way we can do that is by getting truly in touch with our desires, right? And we can do that with deep prayer, with spiritual direction, or with therapy. We need to explore our desires and find out what is the root, because there's usually something more profound going on with our desires. The second thing we can do is fight for dominion over your desires. One really good way to fight for dominion is to practice fasting. Fasting is one of the ways that you build temperance, right? Those of you who fast often would realize that after you have created a habit of fasting, you experience desires in a different way, especially for food. You might feel like desires for different foods or for eating a lot, but then you don't feel like you need to fulfill it immediately, right? And it does the same thing with your sexual desire. Also, I would recommend personally to read about the saints that saints that became champions of temperance or chastity, right? You can look at people like Mother Mary in the Bible, Saint Therese of Lisieux, Saint Augustine, Saint Thomas Aquinas, Pope Saint John Paul II. All of these people are champions of temperance and chastity. So read about them, read their lives, and you will be able to learn certain things about how to develop temperance in your own life. Also, discover the deeper values. Draw closer to God and allow Him to show you things that are greater than what you think you might be desiring in your own heart. So I hope this video helps you to understand chastity a little bit and a little bit of how to actually live it out. All right, if you think that this is helpful, definitely give it a thumbs up and subscribe to this channel. If you have any further questions about chastity, definitely leave it as a comment below, or if you want to share some of your thoughts on chastity, definitely leave it in the comments below. And definitely have a good day. Bye.